Welcome to the first Lord of the Rings video on the channel. Welcome back to Fantasy Theory, everyone. If you're new here, consider subscribing, and if you like these kind of videos, please hit like, it really helps the channel. So what's the spiciest food in Middle-earth? And I know what you're thinking, this is the first Lord of the Rings video and you start off with this? Well, hey, it's kind of an interesting topic, don't you think? Not many people would wonder this. Now, I was working my way through a dozen Jamaican jerk chicken wings when I was suddenly hit by a thought. Did they have spicy food in Lord of the Rings? And if they did, what was the spiciest? So once I tugged on this string, I ended up going down a rabbit hole of Third Age cuisine that would have rivaled anything that you've seen on the Food Network. First, what do you know of the food from Tolkien's Middle-earth? If you're like most people, then there are a few meals that stick out in your mind from the films. Sam's rabbit stew, the halfling sausage, tomatoes, and nice crispy bacon on top of Weathertop. Perhaps even the Steward of Gondor. Denethor's awkward roast chicken feast during the failed Second Battle of Osgiliath. Most of these meals ring true for the original novels written by J.R.R. Tolkien, and because of that, we can make some safe assumptions about the nature of cuisine in the Third Age of Middle-earth. Now, it's no surprise that much of the Shire and its culture was inspired by what Tolkien experienced in his home in North Oxford, England, and for the most part, you can think of the greater Middle-earth landscape as that of Europe or Britain. Although how far that analogy can be stretched is hotly debated in some circles, for some reason, even though it's quite obvious. But nevertheless, we can imagine that much of the cuisine in the lands of Gondor and the fallen kingdom of Arnor, which basically encompasses all the land north of Gondor, which had a fairly normal potatoes and meat composition. Not only that, seeing as The Lord of the Rings is a fantasy book set in a fictional medieval society, they wouldn't have yet been introduced to the New World foods. So, I know, they ate potatoes, tomatoes, and smoked pipe tobacco in Middle-earth, and all of these are New World items, but I think those had become so thoroughly British by Tolkien's time that on a fundamental level, he couldn't really disconnect them from his life, nor the lives of the characters in his novels. And let's be real, having those things in such a fantasy world allows you to connect more with the characters. So besides those items, if we think about it, spicy peppers from the New World probably would be a few centuries from appearing in the port towns of Gondor. The Age of Discovery, which is the term we use to describe the era of European explorers, took place in the later years of the Renaissance. And the Renaissance kind of represents the exact opposite of what idealized fictional fantasy realms are supposed to be. You know, the good old days of myth and legend before science and progress. Which is a whole nother topic altogether, but I digress. So if Middle-earth is based on medieval Europe and they hadn't not discovered yet the New World with all of its spicy chili peppers, their spiciest food must have been seasoned with something else. And yes, in case you forgot, chili peppers all originated in the New World. At least, I'm pretty sure that's right. It's been a long time since 7th grade world history class, you know. So, let's take a walk back from some established recipes and see if we can find some hints of spices and seasoning. If you think back to the films, then besides the British-style platters that Sam, Denethor, and the dwarves like to consume, there were some 100% straight-up fantasy food. Lembas and Draught and Bjorn's twice-baked honey cakes are some that are immediately coming to my mind. These are all fairly normal dishes, and they don't seem to require that much seasoning. Lembas was quite simple, actually. It was a light cake that fans have often speculated was similar to a dry scone. And Draught was described as being earthy, so I imagine that it would be similar to a freshwater spring on a hiking path. And Bjorn's twice-baked honey cakes probably tasted like honey and cake. Nothing really stands out as spicy here, but this is just the grub that shows up in both the films and the novels. If we take a look at the books, the cuisine of the Third Age seems a lot more diverse. So this is when things really pick up here. When the early Fellowship of Hobbits stop at the Prancing Pony, they feast on hot loaves of bread, cold meat, piles of butter, and blackberry pie. Decades prior, when the company of dwarves arrived at Bilbo's house expecting a party, he supplied them with the best that he had. There were meat pies, mince pies, pork pies, cheese, cold chicken, pickles, raspberry jam, apple tarts, and more. But again, none of this really sounds like it raises the needle so much on a Scoville scale. If the map of Middle-earth is based on Britain and Western Europe, then perhaps to find the better seasoned foods, we should look to the south and the east. So that's what I did, and I found that there's one particular culinary treat in Middle-earth that's described as a burning, fiery beverage. And I didn't expect it to come from here. When kidnapped by a band of Uruk-hai, Merry and Pippin are given a dark, thick drink. In the books, this is called orc drought, or orc liquor. Almost obviously, this should be some type of distilled alcoholic drink, but it might not be. The drink is described as something that revitalizes you. After one drink, it makes your whole body warm and takes away any pain. Again, it sounds like liquor. It's also said to burn your mouth and throat as it goes down. Yet again, alcohol definitely does that. But so does spicy food, much like this thick drink. Now I'm pretty sure that orc draught is probably not seasoned with anything spicy. But seeing as this is definitely the closest thing I could find to Tolkien describing a food item with anything other than sweet, pleasant, or delightful, I had to present it to you guys. The Uruk-hai in the film also called the drink grog, which is a British term for some types of cocktails, but in the past was mainly used by sailors to describe water that was mixed with enough rum to keep it safe from spoiling. That's kind of more evidence that orc draught is actually a type of liquor. But if it's anything like a traditional grog, then it should have ample cinnamon mixed in, which is actually a little bit spicy, in the same way that horseradish or wasabi is spicy. Just go pop in a few slices of Trident cinnamon gum if you don't believe me. Now, regarding the question of what is the spiciest food in Middle-earth, I think the best we can do is point our finger at orc draught and theorize that it might contain more spices than the ordinary dishes in the Shire or Minas Tirith, and therefore by comparison is actually spicier than what your average halfling or Gondorian would typically consume. I hope you guys enjoyed this lighthearted Lord of the Rings video. I will have many more Lord of the Rings videos, and I'm also looking to possibly hire some people who want to write some stuff, some scripts on Lord of the Rings or anything that you want. So if you're interested in that, type in the comments below. You obviously have to be proficient at writing, and you have to know Lord of the Rings like I know Star Wars. Hope you have a great day. Leave a like if you enjoyed this, and consider subscribing if you haven't already. I will see you in the next video. Have a great day. But until then, remember, you shall not pass! Come on, give me a break. I'm trying here.